What's up, y'all? This is Josh from KeepItTechie, and today I wanted to do a quick video showing you guys how to set up Kali Linux in a virtual machine. So what is Kali Linux? Kali Linux is a Debian-derived Linux distribution that's specifically designed for digital forensics and pen testing. It's maintained by Offensive Security, and Kali Linux comes with over 600 pre-installed pen testing programs like Armitage, Nmap, Wireshark, just to name a few. So let's get started with the install. So the first thing we need to do is set up our virtual machine. And for this tutorial, I'm going to be using Oracle VirtualBox. And first thing you need to do is just hit next. And we're basically naming the system, and so we go down here and select Linux. It's basically going to store it in our VMs directory, so it's a Linux operating system, and then we'll just say it's Debian because it's a Debian based operating system. Hit next, and what I want to do is select about 2 gigs of memory, which is fine, should be enough. Next. Okay, this is gonna set up your hard drive, and so what you want to do is create a virtual hard disk now. Hit create, and we want to use VDI, which it really doesn't matter. VDI works with VirtualBox. So hit next, and then what we want to do is select dynamically allocated, and basically what that means is it'll only take up the amount of space as the size of the operating system and everything you have in it, and it'll grow from there. When it's fixed, it'll take up that fixed amount that you set in the beginning. So let's say it's a 20 gig virtual hard drive that you set up. Even though it's set at 20 gigs under dynamic, it will only take up the size of the operating system and what you have stored on it. So on your physical hard drive or your host machine, let's say it's about 5 gigs of space that it actually uses. That's the only amount of space that it'll have on your host hard drive. But fixed, if you set it 20 gigs, it's 20 gigs. It'll take away from your hard drive 20 gigs. So let's hit next. And this is where we set the size. So I'm gonna set it, since I have it dynamically allocated, it doesn't matter how big you put it, so I'm gonna just put it about 20 gigs just to make it simple. I don't like that thing. So 20 gigs. Hit create. Bam. So now we have our virtual machine created. Now we have to set it up. So you can right click on it and go to settings of that VM. And then I'm not gonna go through each and every tab, but really the first thing you need to set up is the system processes. You want to make sure you have enough processes for the system. So what I'm gonna do is give it two cores, and that's pretty much it. Under the system display, I always max it out. I always do 128 or sometimes 256. It all depends. The video memory, and then I always enable 3D acceleration. That helps out with graphics. That's pretty much it under there. We don't need to enable that server and enable recording. We don't care about that. Okay, so now let's add the ISO, and basically I've already downloaded, so I'm gonna choose it. It's gonna open up a directory search pretty much, and I believe I have it under somewhere else. Here we go. So you just basically go in and find the ISO, and basically what you're doing is adding the ISO to a virtual disk drive. So it's gonna use that ISO and set it up like it's a live CD or whatever. And then this is the actual hard drive right here with the 20 gigs or whatever. The actual size 2 megabytes, and that's the virtual size, which is 220. So that's the max. So audio, we don't care about. Networking, I'm gonna set it on bridged, that way it gets its own IP address, which is fine. I like to let it get its own IP address, especially when I'm dealing with servers and other Linux distributions, so I can kind of figure out what the IP address is and SSH into it if I need to use it for whatever reason. And pretty much that's it. I don't care about USB serial ports. I don't care about sharing. And actually that reminds me of one other thing I wanted to do. In case I need to, you can do a shared clipboard, and I just want to show you that really you can copy and paste back and forth on the VM. So that's pretty much what that is, bi-directional, or host to guest or guest to host. So I'll just turn it on. So now that we have it set up, we can go down and start the virtual machine. So you just double click on it, and that'll officially start the virtual machine, and it'll boot up off of that live CD. So what I want to do, just to make it simple, the graphical install. I'm not going to go into the live or anything like that. Let's just go straight to the graphical install. And this is most likely what you want to do when you're installing it on your system. So it's pretty easy. Let's give it a couple minutes, and there we go. So I'm gonna select English. Press continue. United States, yes. Continue. American English, yep. All right. So basically what it's gonna do is retrieve some of the stuff from the CD, everything that it needs to install the operating system at this point. So this will take a couple seconds, hopefully not too long, because I know some people complain about how long we kind of sit in between the board moving or whatever. So right here it's going to try to configure the network, which is fine. It'll pull an IP address. Okay, so the host name, I'm gonna leave it Cali, which is fine. Domain, I'm gonna skip that. We don't need a domain name. It's not gonna be part of any organization. Okay, so it gets you to create a root password. So you just put in the password and enter it in twice and press continue. And I'm going to put, let's see, I'm on the West Coast, so I'll put Pacific, continue. So now we're going to get into configuring the hard drives. And Kali is very similar to any other operating system out there. Well, Linux operating system. The install is very easy. So they have a couple options. Use the entire disk, which is what I'm gonna do. They have the one where you can set up LVM, which is logical volumes, or you can do encrypted logical volumes, or you can set it up manually. You can go through that process if you want to. I'm gonna just use the entire disk because it's just a VM, so don't care. It's 20 gigabyte hard drive. That's the only one that's available, so we can continue. And we don't have to separate. Some people do this. They'll separate the home or temp folders onto different partitions, so if they need to recover the system, they can extract their home directory and just move it over to a different system, or reinstall and don't touch the home directory partition when they're doing the reinstall, and so that'll set up their system pretty quickly by doing that. So this is a new system, so I don't care. and it's probably going to be deleted after this. So hit continue. It's going to ask you if you verify that you want to use this, because before this it actually doesn't start touching a hard drive until you get to this point, and this will kind of verify or double check that you want to make these changes to the system, because if you have data on there, you just want to make sure. So we can hit continue here and write the changes, and yeah, that's the other double check just to make sure you want to make those changes to the system. Last chance. Hit continue. Good to go. And now it's partitioning and formatting the drive, and now it's going to install the system. So this will take a little time. Just give it a couple minutes. I might speed through this. Alright, so now it's finished installing. So the next thing we need to do is configure the package manager. So you can just hit yes. Want to use a network mirror, press yes. Continue. We don't care about a proxy. I don't have a proxy set up, so don't worry about that. Continue. Now it's going to configure the package manager, which is apt-get or apt. And I believe the next thing is Grub. It's going to install Grub, so we'll see that in a second pop up. And there we go. So it's installing Grub. It should only take a second. And just so you know, Grub is what manages the operating systems on the system, on the actual computer. So it'll basically list out all the operating systems and point to the actual kernel to boot it up. So yep, man, we want to make it the master, and we can select the SDA drive, which is the drive we want to install a master boot record. Okay, so now the installation is fully complete, so we can hit continue, and it will remove the live packages, and then it'll ask you to reboot in a second. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is actually close the VM before it actually boots up, because I want to make sure that it removed the ISO, which I'm pretty sure it did. Yes, and it did. So Now that that's done, we can go on and boot up. And that's Grub right there. And like I said, it'll allow you to select different operating systems if you're dual booting. And that's basically what Grub is for. So we'll wait until this thing boots up all the way. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, so we can log in with our root account and password. And like I said, this thing is Debian based, so it's welcome to the first store panel. Let's use the default config. And I went with the XFCE desktop. That's the actual one I downloaded. So the first thing we want to do whenever you have a newly installed operating system is basically to update it. This is a fairly recent ISO that I downloaded, so it shouldn't have many updates, which I'm not going to actually upgrade any packages, but I am going to update it because I want to install one thing, and this is something you need to do when you install Kali. You have to do a upgrade of all the packages. So, but what I want to do is install a package, which is VBox. I think it's VBox or virtual. I think it's VirtualBox. And let's tab it out and just see. And I have to spell it correctly. And what we're looking for is the VirtualBox guest. Yeah, there we go. And I'm only doing this to so the VM will show up properly. As you can see, it's kind of small, so we could just install the guest packages, and that way it'll show up properly on the screen. That way you guys can see everything. Now, you don't have to do this if you are installing on physical hardware, because it'll download the drivers and everything for your screen, and you can select your size, the size of your screen, by right clicking on the desktop and select it, just like you would in Windows or any other Linux operating system. So. And one thing about VirtualBox that's recently been going on is very slow. I don't know what changes they made to VirtualBox, but as far as installing and updating, and it's like super slow now. I don't know what they've done to change it. Maybe I need to do a little research and find out why, but it's been very slow no matter what system. I've installed operating systems on VMs before in the past, and it's just been very slow. So now that that's done, let's exit out, and we should be able to change the size of the window. How do you do it? I can't remember. Voices, network audio. I might have to reboot this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reboot in order to fix it. So just give me 1 second. I'm gonna reboot the system. And once it comes up, it should have the option to change the resolution of the screen. Once it comes up, and as you can kind of see, it kind of changed already. Like as far as how it's looking, it should fill in the screen. Once it comes up, you'll see. Yep, here we go. So now the drivers are working for the operating system for VirtualBox. So let's log in again, and now that it's bigger, I can show you guys a little bit about it. Alright, so that's better. So just to show you, it comes pre-installed with all these applications, and they're put into all these different folders based on what they actually do. So information gathering, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis, database assessment, password attacks, wireless attacks, and you know, just different things, exploiting tools. Like I said, Ormitage is on here, aircrack NG, network sniffers, you know, all the major security tools that are out there are most likely on here. And like I said, you can go through and learn about these different programs on your own. I'm not gonna go too deep into them, but most of them are command line based. So if you're really trying to get into this, you might want to start learning the command line a little bit, especially like what is that? Watch this, aircrack NG. It pops up. It opens up a terminal. It basically gives you a list of how to use it, or not a list, but information on how to use it, and then you're prompted to the command line to actually use it. So you're not actually opening up a program like on Windows or something like that. You have to specify everything, and I'm not gonna go into all that. I just want to show you though, you know, a little bit about the system. And it also has pretty much all the basic operating system tools that you would need. You know, it's got an internet, it's got browsers, you know, Chromium by default, Firefox, and let's see what else. You know, ImageMagick, and some development tools. So if you're trying to develop code, you can go in there and use that. Vim, GVim, LeafPad, and pretty much every system tool you may need just for running a regular system. So you good. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as I say at the end of every video, keep it techie.